Hello, it's Scott here, and this is another demo tutorial video where I'm going to show off how I'm constructing a character in Adobe Animate. At the moment what I'm doing is I'm building all the animation layers that I'm later going to embed into a digital puppet. I'm going to do two versions of this puppet. One's going to be built in Adobe Character Animator, and the other one is going to be built in Live 2D, which will then later be used in Vtuber Studio. Now, the construction of both of them both of them rigs are slightly different. Adobe Character Animator makes use of a lot of cycle layers, so what I'll be doing now is animating lots of different blinks, lots of different eyebrow movements, or the mouth visming animations. I might even do some turn animations for this jaw and the nose, so that when a person moves their head left and right, it will trigger a cycle. Basically what happened in Adobe Character Animator is as you move your head left or right, the program will cycle between the ping sequence. However, you don't need to do any of that in Vtuber Studio. In Vtuber Studio, which you use Live 2D, it's more manipulating the mesh, morphing it and whatnot, so it doesn't use cycle layers. So it's a different setup, and I will document that as I come to it. Now, this is the second video. The first video was a quick 3-minute speed art. I say quick, basically it condensed an entire day and evening right down into 3 minutes. So it was a very, quick overview. But in that, you would have seen me put all this together. And now what you're going to see me do is animate it. Right, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is the eyebrows. Now, if you follow Taiyaki Studios YouTube channel, you will see that I've already done this in a previous video for our Taiyaki mascot host. It's a goldfish, and I did the eyebrows in that, and I did the mouth. However, he is a goldfish, and he did have slightly different looking features. So this one that I'm working on right now is much more human features, and I'm sure it will be a lot more beneficial to a lot of people watching who want to perhaps duplicate the way that I work. So I'll do it all anyway. You might not have watched the other video, you may never watch the other video. So first of all, I'm going to start with the eyebrows. As you can see, the two eyebrows are slightly different. Now, the way I normally work is I'll make all the eyebrows on the one side, and then I'll duplicate and flip over. And I can still do that, even though one is different, and I'll show you how. Right, first of all, let's we'll lock that down, and we'll lock that one down too. And where are these eyebrows? There you go, I've got it locked. Right, I normally create about 8 different eyebrows, and basically it's just various degrees of going up, down, and also inflected to show sadness, or kind of curled a bit to show being mad. So I'm going to make one, and then the rest of it will be like a time lapse, a sped up video, so that you can see what I do for the rest. But I'll condense that into 30 seconds or something, so you don't have to sit through it in real time. Right, the first eyebrow we're going to call arch. And let's just make sure, let's duplicate symbol. I'm going to go eyebrow, arch, and I'm going to tag this as an R, because what I'm going to have to do is when I duplicate it, I'm going to have to change the symbol and then switch off this little bit here, which is, as you can see here, is a line. So I'm going to put gap line, and then we've got the actual eyebrow, which is just a line, as you can see, a stroke, and I'm using this like kind of skewered, like it's thicker in the middle. There's probably a proper name for that, but I don't know what it is. And then I've got a bit of a cover, because underneath here you can see I've got the shadow, so that basically covers up. If I take that off, you'll see that the shadow doesn't look right. So I'm going to call that just going to call it brow, call that one shadow, and those are the dots, which is just a bit of artwork for the character. Now normally I do everything to about 6 frames, I know that everything could be slightly different, you know, like timeline wise, but I'm thinking ahead for Adobe Character Animator here. When you group, because basically what I'm going to have is I'm going to have this eyebrow, and it's going to sync up with some eye movements and mouth movements and perhaps other movements, and they all need to be the same length of frames, because if they are a different length of frames, let's say the eyebrows have 5 frames, the eyes have 5 frames, but the mouth has 6 frames. When the mouth is on its 6th frame, the eyebrow and the eye are going to vanish. Okay, everything needs to be on the same amount of frames, even if the last few frames are duplicated. There is actually a way around this in Adobe Character Animator. You can use the replay system, but it doesn't hurt to do it this way, and this is the way I've done it for ages, and this is the way I'm doing it now, and this is the explanation to why. Right, all of these are vectors. I've got none of them as a graphic class, so I can turn all of these into a shape tween, and I'm going to create a keyframe here. And like I said, the first one is going to be an arch. Let's turn this off for a second. Zoom in. And I want it just to lift up a little bit. And I want to add in some ease, so it's not just a boring straight plane movement. I want a bit of ease in and a bit of ease out. So we are going to select all the first frames, and then we're going to go over to our tweening section, and we're going to pick ease in and out, and we're not going to do anything too drastic, so we're going to go with the option which is classed as cubic, and it's a pretty swift action. Right, now actually the dots I might end up turning into a graphic and have as a classic tween. It depends how this works, because sometimes when you've got 2 items like this, it can go a bit ski whiz. This doesn't really need to move that much, so I'm just going to poke it up a little bit. Probably doesn't even need to go up that much. Right, okie dokie. Now I need to just adjust the brow. I'm going to fix that a little bit more in a minute, but you don't need to watch me do that. And the shadow doesn't need to change at all, because it's still covered in that area. The only thing I need to do now is move this up. Right, so I'm going to do the rest of the eye shapes and sorry, the eyebrow shapes, and then I'll report back when I am finished. Right, next I'm going to work on the eyelids. Let's have a look how it's set up at the moment. And that's your eyebrow, so let's just collapse that and lock it down. Right, let's have a quick look. Right, this top layer are some lines, just crease lines. In fact, I'll probably want to divide them up, so I'm going to cut that. Place it in place. I'll call that top crease, and call that one bottom crease. Those are the eyelid lines. Again, that needs to be on its own layer. Place in place. Call that lid line bottom, and we're going to call that one lid line top, and then underneath that we've got this is the mask, which is going to, so that basically it controls what I want people to see, and I want to cut out the bit. If I left this bit in, it'd be covering the eyeball. That's the texture, the colour for the eyelid. I put a bit of a gradient in the middle, so we have a bit more, you know, colour and shading to it, so it's not flat. And this is the upper eyelid shadow, which you can just see there. Again, just for more texture. Right, all of these are vector layers, so once again I'm having this 6 frames, and once again I'm going to go for a shape tween, and I'm going to stick to the same ease in and out as I've got on the eyebrows. Adding a keyframe here, and for the first one I'm just going to go for a simple squint, just a subtle action. So I'm going to select that one there, I'm going to put my anchor point right here, and I'm going to move it down a little bit. It looks a bit squashed, but when I release it, or sort itself out. This one I want to change the shape of it a little bit. Going to get rid of that pivot point there. In fact, that might even be enough. This crease line, let's move that up a little bit, and this one here, drop it down a little bit, and then let's tweak the mask. Go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, select them. Better get that one as well. Bring that down, fix any that look like it's playing up. In fact, I'll get rid of that line altogether. Select this bottom one here, bring that up. I'm going to get rid of that one there. I'm going to bring that up like that. Hopefully that all works okay. Sometimes it can go a bit haywire, as you might have noticed when I was doing the eyebrow. Right, let's see how that looks. Probably fine. Right, so again, like I did with the eyebrows, the rest of it I'm going to do on a time lapse, you know, sped up. All of them are going to be pretty much the same. Sometimes it doesn't work as well as you want, so you might have noticed I break them down into individual frames so that I individually tweak it and fix it. Sometimes I use the onion skin so I can see what's happening in the frame before and after, so you know, it all blends together okay and there's no, you know, jumps that don't look correct. Let's have a quick inspection here. Like for example there, it kind of jumps out a little bit. However, sometimes the motion is so quick that you might never notice. But let's have a look at how it fares. Now this is an issue that I've run into a lot. The mask, when you add a tween to it, seems to not work in between the tween. So what you got to do is, once you've got the tween set up, select your mask layer, and you just got to right click and convert to frame by frame, and then hey presto, it's okay. Which reminds me, I haven't actually sorted out the eyeshadow one. Make sure the ease in and out is on all of them. Which might have messed up my mask a little bit. I can't be bothered to undo it, so I'm just going to quickly go in and tweak each of them. Should have thought about that first, which means I've got to spend a bit longer fixing my mistake, but I suppose it means I fixed this little thing in the corner that I was just complaining about a second ago. Right, wait, oh, That's probably because the eyeball isn't big enough, perhaps. Let's have a look. Yep, that eyeball needs to be bigger. Especially when I do some of my wider open eyelids in a bit. So yeah, that look, make sure it's not poking out from behind the eye too much, or at all. Don't want it to be poking out at all. Now the reason that one's moving as well is because this is a symbol and that's a copy of the symbol, and so whatever changes I'm making in this symbol are going to automatically update in this symbol. However, once I make additional symbols, they're not going to be over this side, so just like the eyebrows, I'm going to have to copy and paste and move it all over there. Right, anyway, so that is how I rig up an eyelid. Like I said, I've done this before in a previous tutorial, but that was a more stylized thing. This is a more human looking eye, a better more kind of anime eye, but that is a style which is very popular at the moment, so hopefully you might find it handy. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below and I will always get back to you and answer whatever you need to know. We do also have a new show. If you look at our Teraki YouTube channel, you will see that we are hoping to do a weekly or bi-weekly or at least once a month new show, and at the end of that my character will be answering questions from the viewers. So if you ever have any technical questions, animation questions or anything of that ilk, post your questions in the comments of the news section, and in the following episode we'll get round and answer that. Right, let's get this speed art time-lapsey part done. Right, next I'm gonna do some animations on the pupils. So let's find it, pupil, let's stick it in a folder. If you're wondering why I haven't you know, duplicated and swapped them over, the only reason I did that with the eyebrows is because I had to make them different. With the eye, I'm going to render all these out, and then when I start layering everything up in Photoshop, I'll flip it all over then. Otherwise, I'm going to have to rename and categorize everything. Then it's just a lot more work. Right, so pupil. What do I want to do? Make it pupil smaller. And it needs to be a graphic, because when you have it as a graphic, you see it play out in the timeline, and when we export it as a ping sequence, you need it to do that. When you have it as a movie file, it doesn't do that. Right, so let's make this. I'm gonna have to break this apart. I'm gonna distribute this to layers. Name everything, so shadow, put that outline, center, fill, and we're going to have a mask as well, so I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call that a mask. Give it an easier colour to recognise, to differentiate from the actual fill colour. Mask it to the shadow. There we go. Right, got our usual 6 frames. And right, let's have a look at this. Shape. I'm gonna outline it so I can see what I'm doing. that one needs to be a classic because it's a symbol, and these two are going to be classic, classic, and a fill shape, sorry. In and out cubic, in and out cubic, and in and out cubic. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to make the iris shrink down. I need to fill that in. Maybe I should make that colour adjust a little bit. Just add a bit more to it. Let's do another version where it gets wider. Now sometimes with my cartoon digital puppet characters I actually make the eyeball get bigger and smaller. I mean, I could do that. I mean, okay, let's try one thing. I'm going to go for another version of smaller, but I'm going to turn it into a black dot. And it can be more for like when he's shocked or surprised or something like that. Alright, and if we're going to do that, should we go more cutesy and large? I mean, the eye's already pretty large in there. I'm just going to stick to those for the moment. So, yep. Just a quick one on how to do the pupils. Right, next I'm going to work on the mouth rigging setup. Now, of everything, normally the mouth takes the longest amount of time to set up because there's normally a lot more of them, and it's a more complicated build. Fortunately, I already had a kind of anime manga mouth which matched the character that I'm building. However, I'm not so fortunate that I can just use it straight away. I've got to change it, and the changes that I've got to do will still take me quite a bit of time. It'll save me a little bit of time, but not as much time as I would have liked. But I will give you a look at how this is all set up. So first of all, let's have a quick look at. So this is a mad mouth shape. Let's have a look at the setup of it. Right, so first of all, we've got the top and bottom lip, and they both start off on the same line, and then they both go off into their own direction, one being the top, one being the bottom. And then here we've got the upper lip. Now in the original version that was more of a pinkish tone, and now I've got to change it more to this green bluey colour. This character also has fangs, so I've got to add fangs to all the different mouths, and I've also got to mask out because we only want to see, because the reason this one is here is that we want these teeth to poke over the bottom fangs. In fact, we want to go over the lower one, so I should bring this up here. Move this one up here because I want it to go over the bottom lip, where before I'd imagine it was going behind, so that is wrong. So I mustn't forget when I go for everything to do that as well. And then we've got the inside of the mouth. So I've got my mask layer here, which wherever I've got this colour, my mask colour, that is what's going to show, and it's going to hide all this around it. And so we've also got inside the mouth, upper teeth, lower teeth, tongue, and the inside of the mouth. A tip for you, really, when you're animating, your upper teeth should not move. If you think of your head, the teeth connected to your lower jaw, you know, as you open and close your jaw, those teeth move, but the teeth connected to your upper, to your skull, basically, your upper head, they don't move at all. So these teeth should never move, but your bottom teeth do move. Now, for this particular Visumin lip sync mouth set, he's got his teeth gritted together, so in this instance the teeth are separate, are together. But in another one I might have go down like this. And that's it really. Like I say, it's just if you've been paying attention to what I've been doing with the eyes and the eyebrow, you can see how finicky it can get sometimes, and with the mouth there's a lot more layers, so it can cause a lot more issues. And as you can see here, we got all your mouth lip sync shapes, and then I've got a couple of expressive mouths, but I can create literally loads. You know, like I've had a character with over 50 slightly varying different mouth shapes. So yeah, this particular one can take ages. So what I'm going to do now is, this is another one of those moments where I am going to, in fact I'm not even going to do a time lapse of this one, because you're not even seeing me build the mouth. All I'm doing is going through and updating all the mouths, so it won't be anything interesting to watch. So I'm going to pause the camera now, pause the screen recording now, and then after that we will get on to the nose animation. Right, I finally got all the mouths done. I'm not going to go through and show you all of them. I don't think it'll be a bit boring, but they're all sorted. Right, so now next, what am I going to do? I am going to animate a nose turn, because in Adobe Character Animator you've got a thing where you can, as you turn your head left and right or up and down, you can trigger the system to cycle through your ping sequence. So if we have this one in the middle, when you turn your head to the character's right, it will begin to cycle through the layers depending on how quick you turn your head. I'll have to demonstrate this later on, but for the moment I need to get the animation done. Right, so I think 5 frames should do it. So insert keyframe. No, 1, 2, 3, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so this is the middle, and now I need to just animate the turn. Right, and so that's the nose. Turning one way and then the other. It won't really be until later on when I can show you with the mocap that you can see how effective this can possibly be. Right, the next thing I've got to do is similar to what I just did with the nose, but with the chin. Now the thing with this particular chin, like with some characters, they've got a chin which is, you know, like almost like a ball on the end of their chin, which you can just have as a separate layer and move along. Or they might have a particularly rounded chin, so when they move their head left and right, you don't notice that, you know, this isn't turning. But this particular chin, I mean, with Adobe Character Animator, you can have a head turn, but ultimately this is a frontal facing puppet that I'm building, and I don't want to do a whole head turn. I'm trying to get a more fluid parallax 2.5D look. So again, I'm going to animate this chin turning, and then later on in Adobe Character Animator, I am going to put that on a controlled cycle layer, which you can control with a head turn. However, when I rig this up in Live 2D, I won't have that issue. One of the benefits of Live 2D is that you can, you know, adjust the mesh and morph it all around. That's a feature that I wish Adobe Character Animator had. Currently doesn't. One of the great things about Live 2D is that it's got a beautiful parallax system, and hopefully that's something that we'll look at in the future when I get around to rigging it in that program. So anyway, I like with the nose, from this point I'm just going to speed it up so you don't have to, you know, watch it in real time. Right, I'm almost finished now. I've got all my animated elements done, and the last thing I've just been tweaking are the hands. Just a couple of hands, some the back of the hand and some from the front of the hand, because these arms are actually situated over the top of the body, so I'll be able to get these arms across the body and across the face in some ways. And the robot hand, I've just made it into a kind of gloved robot-y hand. It would have taken me, I've got a limited amount of time on this, and to go over and draw all the panels for, you know, 14 different hands. It is now almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and tomorrow I need to get this all rendered out and rigged. So yeah, I had to make a call. Maybe later on I'll come back and I'll redo the hands, but for the moment I'm just going for this minimized look. Right, so the last thing I need to do is get this all rendered out. First of all, I've got to make sure everything is a symbol. Because I am going to export this as a movie sequence, as a ping sequence, and those PNG files I'm going to bring into Photoshop, where I am then going to layer it all up, ready to bring into Adobe Character Animator, which is the first program I am rigging this in. And then later on I'm going to have to tweak it a little bit, make some alterations, and then I'll bring it into Live 2D, which will be a different way of setting it up, but I'll come to that later on. Right, so yeah, so that's it really. That's just an insight into how I build a character and how I get them all rigged up. I'll probably speed this up now, so as the video plays out you can just see my process of how I get all these frames ready to export. Right, and once you've got everything rendered and all the frames, this is why they've got to be graphics, because if they were a movie, it's actually a movie, it doesn't play in the scene. So when you export it as a PNG file, you'll just see that first frame. So it needs to be a graphic. So what we do, we go to File, we go to Export, go to Export Movie, find your file. So I'm just going to go to Renders, Default, and then literally make sure you've got ping sequence picked, because if you pick a JPEG sequence you're going to have a white background. If you pick an SVG sequence, it's going to be VET files. Right, so yeah, PNG, go to Save, and 72 DPI will keep it the same size of what your scene document is, and I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press export. And that's it. It's going to export each of them frames. There should be, no, well, I can't move it because this is doing it, but a couple of hundred. And I'm going to bring all them into Photoshop, ready to bring it into Character Animator to rig up. Hello, I thought I'd just add on this bonus bit of footage. Basically, I took everything that I've animated and I've rigged it all into the character in Adobe Character Animator, and I thought I'd just give you a look at how this all turned out. Right, obviously, what you would have just seen me do if you was animate the nose and the chin, and if you look at the nose and the chin now, as I turn my head left and right, you see they are moving. And this isn't a cycle layer, because with a cycle layer, when it's triggered, it would just fire. But this is moving. You'll notice it'll move slow or it'll move fast, depending on how quickly I move my head. See? So it's a nice way of getting more advanced parallax using Adobe Character Animator. However, I've also got parallax if you look at the hair, the fringe, the hair here, the hair on top. Look at the cheeks and the ears, and this, just, you know, if you look at the face, you'll see everything is moving around. It's just subtle, just so, you know, the face doesn't look stationary, and, you know, if they've got a character either side of them, you know, it looks like they're turning their head a little bit. It's just to give the illusion of a 2.5 effect. Anyway, you saw me animate a lot of other features in Adobe Animate, and basically those were to create expressions. So I've got them rigged in, and I'm going to show you what they look like now. Simple smile, bit of a sad face, more of a happy face, that's a kind of shocked face, simple little grin, that's him looking annoyed, that's kind of perplexed, like, you know, what the hell are you talking about? That's a bit fed up, unimpressed. That's another kind of version of that. And that's just a blink. Now, as I'm blinking my eyes, and the character will do that. This is just a bit more an advanced blink, where you got the eyebrows going as well. And that's a bit of a fed up look. And that's just a bit of a cheeky smile. And as always, you can control all of these by themselves, and you can mix and match everything to make even more expressions. Right, and also I've got this zoomed in. If I zoom out, all the way out, I've also added in a few arm triggers, just a couple for the minute, just to demonstrate how it works. If I lean down, it's got some physics on the body. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you a quick update on how I put all that animation to use. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.